The next story I wanted to talk about is about somebody named Kirk Cameron. The guy's probably most famous for this debate that he had with Ray Comfort. I'll tell you what, if you don't know what this is, I'll let you go in blind. This debate happened May 5th, 2007. Let's just watch.
Science has never found a genuine transitional form that is one kind of animal crossing over into another kind, either living or in the fossil record. And there's supposed to be billions of them.
That is incorrect. Science has found lots of transitional forms. Archaeopteryx, Tiktaalik, like there are a billion examples. Those are just two. We've found a lot of transitional forms. The fact that he's even said this betrays a complete lack of understanding for what evolution is or how it operates or anything else about it, honestly.
Now, what I'm about to show you does not exist. These were actually created by our graphic artists, but I want you to keep your eye out for this because this is what evolutionists have been searching for hundreds of years. All right? And if you find one of these, you could become rich and famous. So here's some transitional forms. This is called the crocodile. Can you see this?
God, what a numbnut.
Crocodile and a duck. All right, let's try another one. This is the bullfrog. Half bull, half frog. Or, of course, the sheepdog.
Yeah, that's just complete nonsense. He obviously does not understand what evolution is or how it works. The fact that he's saying this in the first place tells me he doesn't understand the first thing about it. He got really, really well known, like notorious for this clip among atheists after 2007. Like everybody was talking about it. It was ridiculous. I wanted to just give you an idea of who he is. So let's watch another clip from him. This guy next to him, this is Ray Comfort. He's another evangelical type who likes to debate people a lot, and he gets on the debate stage all the time. Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort are close friends, and they're always debating people. They're always on the Christian side of the Christian versus evolution debate. Anyway, they had this show May 22nd, 2006. They went on this show together. Kirk Cameron's on the right here, Ray Comfort's on the left, and they were talking about evolution, of course. So Ray, on the left here, he has an illustration he wants to lay down for us. So let's listen to this one. By the way, this is the reason that Ray Comfort is called Banana Man, if you're curious.
Behold the atheist's nightmare. Now, if you study a well-made banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 ridges. On the close side, 2 ridges. If you get your hand ready to grip a banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 grooves, on the close side 2 grooves. The banana and the hand are perfectly made one for the other.
I will not take the low-hanging fruit. I will not do it. You cannot force me to take the low-hanging fruit.
You'll find the maker of the banana, Almighty God, has made it with a non-slip surface. It has outward indicators of inward contents. Green, too early. Yellow, just right. Black, too late.
I understand what he's saying here. He's basically trying to illustrate the fact that everything seems to be made for us here, right, on Earth. It seems like it's made for us. But I think it was, who was it? What's the name of the guy who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Douglas Adams, yeah. Douglas Adams wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, really, really famous book, and I feel he had the best answer to this problem. Everything does seem like it's designed to us. It looks like we're made for this world, right? Let me give you this quote from Douglas Adams. This is what he had to say about it. If you imagine a puddle waking up one morning and thinking, this is an interesting world I find myself in, an interesting hole I find myself in. Fits me rather neatly, doesn't it? In fact, it fits me staggeringly well. It must have been made to have me in it. Just because something fits you well, just because you fit in something well, or your environment seems to be designed for you, doesn't mean it was. You have no reason to make that assumption. A hole was not made for a puddle. The water dripped down into the ground and formed the puddle. The puddle perfectly shaped to its environment. The two came together and now are shaped exactly the same, the hole and the water. It's a similar situation with what we're seeing with the banana. Although it's a little bit different with the banana, because actually this isn't originally what bananas looked like or how they operated. The bananas that we have today, they are a direct result of artificial selection. We made the bananas that we have today. Have you ever seen an original banana, like what they looked like before we got to them? This weird potato-looking thing that's like hard and full of seeds and just disgusting. We modified the banana over time by selecting for what tasted the best. And from my understanding, I could be wrong on this, so don't quote me, but I believe just about every modern banana that we eat, I think they're all clones of each other. This isn't an example of intelligent design. This isn't an example of seeing something and just accepting that it was made for us. This isn't an example of fine-tuning. This is an example of evolution, Ray. This is an example of evolution.
Now, if you go to the top of the banana, you'll find, as with the soda can makers, they placed a tab at the top. So God has placed a tab at the top. When you pull the tab, the contents don't squirt in your face.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, what he just said. Just like a soda can has a tab at the top, the banana has a tab at the top where you pull it off. I don't think soda cans were modeled after the banana, but there is something called biomimicry. It's this concept in science where evolution has pretty much figured out the best way to do things over millions of years. And we copy it a lot of the time. We copy a lot of the ideas that we find in nature because it's just straight up the best way to do it. Doesn't mean we're perfect. We are absolutely not. I can think of a billion different ways to improve the human body, to make it more efficient. The human body is far from perfect, but it did get some things right, for sure.
You'll find the wrapper, which is biodegradable, has perforations. Notice how gracefully it sits over the human hand. Notice it has a point at the top for ease of entry. It's just the right shape for the human mouth.
Not taking the low-hanging fruit, I refuse. You guys want me to, I'm not going to do it.
It's chewy, easy to digest, and it's even curved toward the face to make the whole process so much easier.
Anyway, so that's Ray Comfort's, analysis of bananas and evolution. God, I'm not taking the low-hanging fruit. I know you want me to, and I absolutely won't. He didn't stop in the mid-2000s. He converted when he was 17 years old, according to him, and he uses the term recovering atheist. Like he's a recovering alcoholic or a recovering addict or something. He's a recovering atheist. That term honestly makes me sick. I work in the drug rehabilitation field, or that's what my degree is in. And when people say things like that, it genuinely just makes me sick, man. It makes light of something that it's like a flippant thing that, anyway, it just gets under my skin. As I was saying, he didn't stop in the 2000s. So he was 17. How old is he now? He's like 50-something, isn't he? He's 51 now. And it's 2022. So he was born in 1971. So in 1988 is when he converted to Christianity, I guess. If he converted at 17, then it was 1988, I believe. Since he's 51 now, it's 2022. He was 17. Anyway, so he's been doing all of this since 1988. And the 2000s, mid-2000s, like this era that we're watching right here, this is when it started to get really serious and ramp up. But it got even worse as time went on. He continued on to this day. Now, he's putting stuff out, like nutty stuff. So I wanted to watch this next clip. November 2nd, 2020. He went on Fox News, and they were about to watch some kind of a rally with Trump, I think, at the time. So he was squeezing in there right before the rally. Let's check this clip out and see what he had to say. November 2nd, 2020. I think this was like 2 days before the 2020 election.
Well, I can tell you that as I travel the country and teach in churches, I'm seeing a couple things that are just astounding. One is the enthusiasm level for people going out and rallying for a presidential election is unbelievable. 96-mile car train, 30,000 vehicles, 58,000 people in Pennsylvania. Regardless of the side of the aisle you're on, this enthusiasm level is unprecedented.
Yeah, I don't think it's unprecedented, this enthusiasm level, but he is correct on that. The enthusiasm factor is something that is measured in politics. Like, how enthusiastic are these people for this candidate? Hillary Clinton's enthusiasm factor was significantly lower than Donald Trump's in 2016. If Hillary Clinton's enthusiasm factor had been just a little bit higher, she certainly would have won. But having a voter base that is so die-hard enthusiastic about you means they will crawl over broken glass to vote for you. And that is, I think, what won Trump the election in the first place. People absolutely loved the dude in 2016. Not so much 2020. Not so much 2020. He was way more polarizing and controversial in 2020. The enthusiasm factor went up for the not Trump candidate. Not for Biden necessarily, but for the not Trump candidate. They just didn't want him in office anymore. And that's why he lost. So anyway, let's continue listening to Kirk Cameron.
I see people of faith waking up to the scary idea that socialism and communism are knocking on our doors this Halloween season. And they're disguised in the costumes of public health and social justice.
What is he even talking about? Socialism and communism are knocking on our doors this Halloween, dressed up as social justice? What? This is so strange. So the dude went from like a religious extremist who's trying desperately to spread religion to everybody he possibly could and to debunk evolution or whatever, and he went straight down a right-wing political rabbit hole. This is something that I've been watching happen a lot recently. I've seen a lot of this happening recently. People who used to be just plain religious are now melding two ideologies together. Their religious identity and their political identity. They're melding them together. And when you meld two identities together like that, there have to be compromises on one of the two things. They don't fit together perfectly. For example, Jesus was kind of a socialist person, right? Jesus hated violence and loved giving things to the poor and all of that other stuff. So these people have to find some way to reconcile their love for guns with Jesus's pacifism, their hatred of socialism with Jesus's love for socialism. They don't fit together right. They don't fit together perfectly. That's what happens when you try to meld two identities together that way. And that's what we're seeing happen in Kirk Cameron's head right now.
Our governor just deemed going to church non-essential and Thanksgiving with all my grown children in my living room non-essential. And so that's why friends of mine and I created this event called Non-Essential that millions of people have seen with Dinesh D'Souza and Charlie Kirk. Yep. And it's been an incredible time to fight back and grab our essential liberties.
Yeah, they cut him off there because I guess Donald Trump was coming out to speak, and it was time to push him out. He only got like a few seconds in, but anyway. Now I have to explain to you the situation that I found myself in. Recently, I've been doing this thing where I have 3 YouTube channels, okay? I have my main channel, Telltale, my Fireside Chat channel, and I have my Telltale Unfiltered channel. Now, on the Telltale Unfiltered channel, I usually do like long-form breakdowns. Like what I have pulled up here is a Charlie Kirk interview with Kirk Cameron. It's like 30 minutes long, so I will sit down and watch the entire interview on Twitch, like beginning to end. It usually takes me about an hour to get through or so. Sometimes 2 hours, depends. So after watching it on Twitch, I will edit it down a little bit, fix the audio, and upload it to my Telltale Unfiltered channel, my 3rd channel. I did this with Greg Locke. I talked about him on my main channel, my Fireside Chat channel, and then I talked about him on Twitch, his whole broken down interview with these people and everything. Did the same thing with Jim Brewer recently, and I was going to do this with Kirk Cameron. So I was editing this video for my main channel about Kirk Cameron, and I uploaded it last night, and guess what? It turns out Kirk Cameron Content ID protected his entire YouTube channel. That's a system that only famous Hollywood actors have access to. I don't have access to Content ID. Normal people don't. So he's basically protected himself from being criticized at all on YouTube. Anything that he puts out on YouTube cannot be talked about on YouTube because it'll immediately alert him and it'll be taken down, basically. So needless to say, I can't play the interview with Charlie Kirk and Kirk Cameron. I literally only had a day's notice to do what I did to find a workaround because I don't feel like it's right to not criticize him. I don't feel like it's right to let him get away with this. So what I did was I subtitled everything. I subtitled the whole thing, and then I read the subtitles. So I basically dub over it. And then I did like screenshots every couple of seconds to give you an idea of who was talking and what was happening at that exact moment. So we'll give this a shot. This is my copyright safe method of addressing Kirk Cameron despite his best efforts to prevent it. This interview with Charlie Kirk came out February 19th, 2022. So give this a listen. Kirk Cameron, I want to talk about how you and me and the people that are watching can practically do something to practice religious freedom. Because if we don't practice it, it's going to go away. And how we can protect it from those who are taking it away from us. I'm kind of confused by what he means when he says what we can practically do to practice religious freedom. But aren't you practicing religious freedom every time you go to church or whatever? Like, what are you even talking about? He's got this deep persecution complex where he thinks people are trying to take his religious freedom away from him. It's bizarre. This was Kirk Cameron's question to Charlie Kirk. So let's see what Charlie Kirk's answer is to this. How do we exercise religious freedom? This is what he said. Are you the same person publicly that you are privately? That's the most important thing that we first have to do. So what he's saying here is, are you an extremist? That's really the question. We know that if you're watching this, you're most likely an extremist. Are you public about that? You need to be public about how extreme you are. That's what Charlie Kirk seems to be saying here. More disguising yourself when you leave your home. No more that you have to put on this jersey of being kind of this like secular liberal when you're at work. No. You don't need to pretend to be a secular liberal. Nobody is asking you to be that. We're just asking you to not shove stuff down our throats and be an extreme little nutcase who eats himself alive with hate and conspiracy theories. That's all we're asking. Or alternatively, don't say a word about politics at work. I won't say a word about politics at work. You don't say a word about politics at work. See how simple that is? We can work together. We can get things accomplished if we don't touch the subject. That's not good enough for Charlie Kirk. That is not what he wants. That is not an acceptable answer. Charlie Kirk is encouraging people in this interview to be extreme. Come out and act like a wingnut. That is what he's telling people to do. You're living under the tyranny of other pressure. Yes, you might lose your job. Yes, you might lose your friends. But the moment that you have to now pretend to be somebody that you're not in social situations, then they've won. I'm not asking you to pretend to be something that you're not. I'm asking you to just not talk about it at all. If nothing else, you don't have to pretend. Just don't talk about it. Is there literally nothing in your life that is more important than this? Is this the highlight of your life? Wearing a red Trump hat and hating liberals? I know that's your entire personality, but can you set the personality aside for like 8 hours a day while we work so that we can get things accomplished together? Like, you don't have to be that 24/7, do you? Just get a job done. Like, we're all here to do a job. Charlie Kirk does not want that. Charlie Kirk wants people to be extreme. That's what he's saying. You have to now pretend to be somebody that you're not in social situations. Then they've won. The minute that breaks, then all of a sudden they're going to start to lose. Their power is their ability to make us to conform. I'm not asking anybody to conform. Honestly, I'm not. I'm asking you to chill out and work with me to get this job done so that I can go home and like eat a bag of chips and drink a beer. That's it. That's all I'm asking. I don't need you to conform to me. Just don't be a nutcase for 8 hours a day. That's it. I believe it's Romans 8:12 or Romans 12:8. This is how I kind of get the numbers screwed up at times. Do not Wow, that's great Christianity there, Charlie Kirk. Do not conform to the ways of this world. It is a biblical teaching to not conform to the ways of this world. Yeah, the fact that he whipped that verse out is a little concerning to me. Actually, it's very concerning to me because Jehovah's Witnesses use the exact same verse to justify not being around non-Jehovah's Witnesses. This group that we're talking about right now, a little bit of an amorphous group. You know, Charlie Kirk and Kirk Cameron's like brand of Christianity or whatever, they are going deep down cult territory right now, and it is very concerning to see. There's always been a cult there in the background, but these people are getting more extreme as time goes on, and they're dragging more people down with them. This is Kirk Cameron speaking now. It's switching away from Charlie Kirk. Kirk Cameron is about to ask another question of Charlie Kirk, going in a different direction. Listen to this. Kirk Cameron, most of us know that this is going to come at some kind of cost. Like you said, losing your job is a big deal for someone who doesn't have a big social media platform to be able to other ways of getting their message out. Yeah, I just quoted it verbatim. I know it's a mess. I stuck in every word that he said, even the ums and the uhs. I just felt like that was the best way to do it. I know it's a little choppy. Just bear with me. And so understandably, it's like, well, what do I do? But if we all do it, if we all join together, voluntary unions, and we begin to associate with one another. Again, voluntary unions, those are the words he used. I don't even know what he means, but I get the idea. What he's saying is if we all join together and we quit Twitter together, if all conservative Christians quit Twitter and we go to our own social media networks, then we can segregate the country. That's what they're going for, really. That's what they're going for. They're trying to segregate the country. That's what is being discussed right now. We can then begin rebuilding the systems and the institutions, which is what we should have been doing from the beginning, rather than relying on platforms built by people who want to destroy our message. Twitter doesn't want to destroy your message. There are like 1 billion religious people on Twitter. Twitter has rules about what you are and aren't allowed to do. It heavily revolves around your behavior. Are you harassing people? Are you stalking people? Are you mistreating or bullying? Also, are you spreading misinformation? Are you spreading COVID conspiracy theories? All this stuff is taken into account when Twitter decides to take down tweets. You know, if you don't want your message to be taken down, then make it one that isn't harassing or attacking somebody. Or make it one that isn't full-blown misinformation about COVID conspiracy theories. Simple as that. Rather than relying on platforms built by people who want to destroy our message, right? That would be like Jesus trying to depend on the Pharisees to disseminate the gospel. Dude, I love the screenshots. I know the audio audience can't see them right now, but I just took the screenshots at random. This was totally unintentional, but look at the faces this guy is making right now. I absolutely love it. Look at the faces he's making right now. Oh my God. It's just priceless, man. Really. I love it. Anyway, let's continue. Who want to destroy our message, right? That would be like Jesus trying to depend on the Pharisees to disseminate the gospel to Israel. You'd be like, well, of course they're not going to want to do that. Well, you know, you can write a book. You're perfectly within your rights to write a book and send it to somebody or whatever. And that's what Jesus was doing and all of his people. They were doing this exact thing. They were writing things down and sending it out to people. Nobody is going to prevent you from writing a book and sending it out to people. But what he's doing here is encouraging segregation, and I honestly think that we should be more concerned about that message than we are right now. You'd be like, well, of course they're not going to want to do that. And so he created his own discipleship program and sending them out, right? And that's what we need to begin doing. And I see people are doing it because we have no choice now. So here's my big problem, okay? My big problem with this kind of thing is what it causes people to do. I want to show you a clip of Charlie Kirk at an event being asked a question by somebody. And it perfectly illustrates what this type of rhetoric, this type of behavior encourages in people. Let me show you what Charlie Kirk's audience is thinking when they hear him saying things like this.
At this point, we're living under a corporate and medical fascism.
No, we aren't. Corporate and medical fascism, no, it's nonsense. What he's talking about is like vaccine mandates and all that other stuff. For one thing, we were never mandated to take vaccines. Never. That was never even a possibility. Biden, I think, signed an executive order that would make companies either get their employees vaccinated or test them weekly, one or the other. You always had an out. You didn't even have to get fired. You could get tested once a week or get vaccinated. So at no point in time were we living under medical tyranny or medical fascism, whatever you call it. As far as corporate fascism goes, I think we have different definitions, so I'm not even going to address that one. Let's keep listening.
This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people?
This is what it encourages people to do. This is the mindset that Charlie Kirk's audience has because of the language, the rhetoric that he uses. Now, in Charlie Kirk's defense, he denounced that, and the reason that he denounced it was because he says it plays right into their hands. When they, some amorphous, mysterious they, of course being liberals, or the cabal, if you will, when the cabal hears you say things like that, it justifies them taking away your gun rights. You know, if there was a reason to take somebody's guns away, I would say that question would be one of them, for sure, absolutely. I don't care what reason you had for denouncing it. The fact that your audience is saying things like this is absolutely wrong. And it's your fault. It's your fault. This is the kind of thing that this rhetoric encourages right here. He should be ashamed of himself. Let's listen to the next clip from Kirk Cameron. I think it's Kirk Cameron starting out here. Listen to what he had to say. If we could bring back the value for religious freedom and we could re-enshrine it and celebrate it and defend it all across this nation, what would be the positive effects that we would begin to see culturally? Are you kidding me? Religious freedom is something that I stand for. I believe in religious freedom. I am all for it. What are you even talking about, religious freedom? You think that I'm against religious freedom? Religious freedom is the thing that gives me the right to not be a Christian. Christianity is the majority religion in the United States. It holds all the power, all the cards. Of course, I'm in favor of religious freedom. I need protection from you. He never wanted religious freedom. He doesn't care about religious freedom. What he cared about was religious supremacy. He realizes that there is a barrier. He found the barrier. The barrier is you're not allowed to shove yourself into politics in blatant ways. And they started pushing that barrier as much as they could. They want to knock it down. And until they knock that barrier down, until they run the government, full-blown run the government, they're going to claim to be persecuted by that. It's completely unhinged from reality. His worldview is not representative of reality in any way, shape, or form. And honestly, it hasn't been since 1988 at the very latest.